wartime sex slavery met with
extraordinary climate crisis and pledged to work with the EU to tackle the challenge.
The objective of its North Korea policy is
Protesters gathering across the country to peacefully demand an end to hate and violence.
Arirang, what matters?
Coming up in the newscast, the South Korean government will implement strategies for each export region and country, including the Middle East and Europe. In line with such efforts, President Yoon led his administration's meeting of related matters and also held talks with the visiting president of Kenya. The ruling and main opposition parties reached an agreement on opening a parliamentary probe into the Itaewon tragedy. It'll come after they first deal with a budget for next year. With Team South Korea set to take on Uruguay for the first World Cup match, authorities are taking measures to ensure safety when football fans gather for street cheering.
Hello, it's good to have you with us. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. The South Korean government plans to implement tailored export strategies for different parts of the world. In line with this, President Yoon led his administration's first meeting on export strategy. Shin Se-byuk starts us off.
South Korea seeks to become one of the world's top 5 export powerhouses by 2026. On Wednesday, President Yoon Suk-yeol held his administration's first export strategy meeting. There, the government unveiled a series of measures to boost the nation's sluggish exports, a response to deteriorating economic conditions around the world.
이런 글로벌 복합 위기를 기회로 삼아서 세계 5대 수출 대국으로 우뚝 설 수 있도록 다 같이 힘을 모아야 할 때입니다.
To start with, the aim is to increase exports to South Korea's 3 major export markets, namely China, the ASEAN countries, and the U.S., which together account for over half of the country's total exports. With the countries of ASEAN, Seoul will work to diversify its supply chains by boosting exchanges and investment. Currently, Korea's exports center on Vietnam, so it will look to increase collaboration with other Southeast Asian countries such as Indonesia and Thailand. As for the U.S., South Korea will take active part in eco-friendly projects. The government also says it will take steps to deal with the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which puts Korean-made EVs at a disadvantage in the U.S. market. And with China, it will support exports of green technologies such as those related to smart cities and green mobility, in parallel with Beijing's commitment to achieving carbon neutrality by 2060. Seoul also seeks to foster cooperation at all levels, from the central government to the private sector. The government also plans to boost bilateral cooperation with 3 targeted markets, in particular the Middle East, Latin America, and the EU. It will focus on fostering the sectors of defense, nuclear power plants, and other manufacturing. And in the Middle East, under the plan, Korea will seek to take active roles in mega projects there in energy, infrastructure, and other sectors. This includes deals for the $500 billion megacity construction project signed last week during the visit to Seoul by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. To find new markets in Latin America, Seoul will push for new free trade agreements with countries abundant in resources, such as Mexico and Chile, while promoting Korean pop culture there. With its EU partners, South Korea will boost its sales of defense and nuclear power, while seeking active consultations with them regarding the bloc's regulations on the carbon market. The plan also seeks to foster industries with the highest growth potential, including the chip and secondary battery industries, in order to strengthen the nation's export competitiveness. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Carrying on his latest series of summit diplomacy that began with his tour of Southeast Asia 2 weeks ago, President Yoon sat down with the visiting president of Kenya Wednesday afternoon. In Seoul for a 3-day official visit, Kenyan President William Ruto and the South Korean leader discussed expanding economic ties and cooperation in ICT, education, pharmaceutical, and infrastructure.
케냐는 동아프리카 진출을 위한 관문이자 물류 중심지로 많은 우리 주요 기업들이 진출해 있는 아프리카 핵심 협력국 중의 하나입니다. 오늘 정상회담을 계기로 양국 간 이러한 교류 협력이 더욱 강화되기를 희망하며 각 분야 협력에 대한 심도 있는 논의가 이루어지길 기대합니다.
Let me applaud our friendship between South Korea and Kenya. These historical ties are founded on common values and principles, and in pursuit of our shared commitments, both our countries have continued to nurture and expand the ties with the aim of contributing to the realization of mutual socio-economic development.
This is the first visit by a Kenyan president to South Korea in 32 years. The two nations established diplomatic ties in 1964 upon Kenya's independence. At a business forum, the Kenyan leader expressed hopes of facilitating more trade and investment between his country and South Korea. This comes as Africa is set to have more than a quarter of the world's population by the year 2050. Choi Min-jung brings the highlights from that session.
Kenyan President William Ruto portrayed his ambitions to bolster economic ties with South Korea during his three-day visit to Seoul. The president spoke at the Kenya-South Korea Business Forum on Wednesday, which was held to explore trade and investment opportunities between the two countries.
The opportunity that Kenya presents to investors and business people in this part of the world is not just about the investment opportunity in Kenya. It is bigger than that. It is the investment opportunity that you can launch from Kenya into the continent of Africa.
Kenya is the third largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa and serves as a logistics hub and gateway to the continent of Africa. However, the country still sees room for growth in particular sectors including agriculture, ICT, infrastructure, and health. The president of the Korea-Africa Foundation says that South Korean companies have the experience and ability to support Kenya's economic growth in these industries.
South Korea is also ready to cooperate and to grow together by sharing our past experiences that have lots of trials and errors, but finally succeeded.
The forum also highlighted that Kenya's unlimited potential for growth will allow South Korean companies to explore new business opportunities between the two nations. A number of Kenyan cabinet ministers, along with high-level private sector participants, joined Wednesday's event, as well as members of South Korea's business community, including representatives from Samsung C&T Corporation and POSCO International Corporation. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Seoul-Washington joint military drills are long-time defense exercises that do not pose a threat to any country, including North Korea. That's coming from the U.S. mission to the UN when asked by Radio Free Asia to comment on Kim Yo-jong's remark that UNSC applies a double standard. On Monday, the Council convened to discuss the regime's latest ICBM launch, only to fail to take action due to opposition from China and Russia. Washington earlier vowed to continue raising concerns to China and other countries about the reclusive state's destabilizing impact. A commemoration was held for two South Korean Marines who were killed in the 2010 North Korean artillery bombardment of Yeonpyeong Island. The event at Daejeon National Cemetery was attended by about 200 people, including the families of the fallen soldiers. In a statement read out by a Defense Ministry official, Minister Lee Jong-sup said the military, upholding the spirit of the two heroes, is maintaining a firm readiness posture to fight and win at any time. He added South Korea will respond immediately and decisively, exercising its right to self-defense should the regime undertake direct provocation. The Marine Corps has declared 5 days starting Monday a memorial period for the young men who died on Yeonpyeong-do. People in Ukraine are bracing themselves for difficult months ahead, with Russia having inflicted colossal damage on the country's electricity grid. President Zelensky believes Moscow will use the cold season as a weapon of destruction, and so has ordered stations to be set up to provide basic necessities like water and heat. Kim Bo-kyung has the latest.
Ukraine is bracing for a hard winter as most of the Russian damage to Ukrainian power generating facilities has been colossal. The CEO of Ukraine's national power grid operator Ukrenergo said on Tuesday that hardly any of the country's key substations have been left unscathed. Kherson in particular is the region that's in more need of power.
Practically all thermal and hydro generations, meaning major power stations, have been damaged by missile attacks.
During an address to France's Congress of Mayors on Tuesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky criticized Russia for focusing on Ukraine's energy infrastructure and using the cold winter as a weapon of destruction. Zelensky then called on French mayors to provide assistance to his country. To help with energy shortage back home, Zelensky said the country would set up what are being called invincibility centers nationwide.
If massive Russian strikes were to happen again, and if we would have the understanding that power would not be restored within a few hours, then the work of these invincibility centers will be activated. All the basic necessities will be provided. This is electricity, telephone services, internet, heating, water, first aid medicines.
Russia is also making Europe suffer. According to the Russian energy giant Gazprom on Tuesday, it will reduce the natural gas supply being delivered through the last pipeline heading to Europe via Ukraine, starting next Monday, saying gas meant for Moldova was being taken by Ukraine. While Russia is reportedly planning to draft up to 700,000 troops in a second mobilization, the U.S. said it would provide an additional $4.5 billion in direct budget support to Ukraine. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said Tuesday that the funds will help economic stability and support core government services, providing aid for the elderly and the vulnerable. Yellen added the U.S. will continue using all its tools to, quote, weaken Putin's war machine. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The National Assembly will carry out its own investigation into the Itaewon crowd crush. The rival parties agreed on a compromise plan which will be put up for a vote on Thursday. Yoon provides a glimpse of what to expect.
Ending weeks of wrangling, the rival parties have agreed on how to go about with a parliamentary probe into the deadly Itaewon crowd crush that resulted in the deaths of 158 people. This comes as the ruling People Power Party made a last-minute decision to take part just one day before the opposition bloc led by the Democratic Party was set to push ahead with passing the plan. But only on the condition that the National Assembly passes the budget first and the revisions are made to the original blueprint proposed by the opposition bloc. Under the finalized plan, national police and fire agencies, Seoul City Government, Yongsan-gu District, and the Ministry of the Interior and Safety will all be investigated. But some organizations associated with the presidential office, including the Presidential Security Service, have been taken out upon the PPP's request.
The DP was arguing that the accident occurred due to the relocation of the presidential office as riot police were dispatched there rather than in other areas, which he believed does make logical sense.
The other contentious area was the duration. The DP initially called for 60 days, but they've settled on 45 days, which can be extended only upon bipartisan agreement if necessary. The session kicks off right away on Thursday, but the actual investigation will begin next month.
The next few days will be regarded as a pre-investigation used for reviewing documents. Once the next year's budget is passed, we will get started with the audit sessions and on-site inspections.
The 18-member Special Parliamentary Committee will oversee the investigation. It will be headed by the DP and consists of 9 DP lawmakers and 2 from minor parties who are already appointed. Following the last-minute decision, the People Power Party will finalize the list of members to take part in the investigation committee as early as Thursday morning, right before the plan will be put for a vote in the afternoon. Young-eun, Arirang News.
Turning to the world of sports, South Korea will face Uruguay in its first World Cup match on Thursday. Fans are brimming with anticipation as Son Heung-min is confirmed to play. While street cheering was initially banned following the Itaewon tragedy, authorities made changes following a request by the national team's official supporter group, the Red Devils or the Reds. Lee Si-hoo has the full story.
40,000. That's how many people are expected to hit the streets on Thursday when South Korea's national men's football team plays its first 2022 World Cup match. 12 squares and stadiums around the country will be used as fan parks to watch the game on a big screen. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters said on Wednesday that it expects around 15,000 people at Gwanghwamun Square in central Seoul and 20,000 at Suwon World Cup Stadium. Previously on Tuesday, the Seoul city government approved a request by the Red Devils, the national team's official supporters group, to hold street cheering events in central Seoul. The decision was made after the city government examined the safety management measures put forward by the Red Devils. The only condition being that the group follows a set of further safety measures advised by the Jongno-gu district office. The Red Devils said they will prepare 3 times more safety personnel than the previous World Cup in 2018. They will also move its main stage to a wider area to alleviate the crowd density. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo instructed related authorities on Wednesday to prepare thoroughly to make sure there isn't a single safety incident on the night of the match. Seoul City will dispatch around 270 officials to prepare for emergency situations. The National Police Agency will dispatch over 180 officers, 9 teams of riot police, and 18 special assault commandmen around the country. Over 40 police officers and 8 teams of riot police will be dispatched just to Gwanghwamun Square alone. Buses will temporarily stop running to stations at Gwanghwamun Square, and subways may skip the Gwanghwamun station if the subway cars get too crowded. South Korea play Uruguay at 10 p.m. Korea time. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Staying with the World Cup for the host country, it's an opportunity to gain global prestige and put itself on the map. But at the same time, playing that role comes at a huge cost. Jeong sheds light on the economic impact of the global sporting event.
It's by far the most expensive World Cup ever. Qatar World Cup 2022 is the first global football tournament to be held in the Middle East, but the Gulf state had to pay an astronomical price tag to be able to do so. The cost of building the necessary facilities and infrastructure is estimated at anywhere from $220 billion to $300 billion US. Qatar's total costs are nearly 20 times what Russia spent to hold the World Cup in 2018 and almost 15 times what Brazil spent in 2014. It's nearly 5 times the combined amount of what all the World Cup hosts have spent to hold the tournament since 1990. Despite the extreme costs, the chief executive officer of the World Cup 2022 says the sporting event will bring massive exposure to Qatar.
Really, right now, I think Qatar is well positioned to attract more tourism in the future after the World Cup, but also to attract foreign trade and foreign capital.
Experts say the one-month tournament will deliver record-high revenue for organizers FIFA, and Qatar will recoup some of the infrastructure costs through the $17 billion that the World Cup is forecast to bring to the local economy. Qatar World Cup match tickets are the most expensive they've ever been. Fans are paying an average of $340 per match, which is about 40% more than at the last World Cup in Russia in 2018. Tickets for the final cost around $812 on average. It's not just Qatar that's getting the attention. Nearby Dubai is also cashing in, as it's just a short flight away from Qatar, so Dubai's tourism industry is benefiting as well.
It's a great fillip for us to see GWC suddenly so busy for the World Cup, and we hope that actually this will be the impetus.
Not only neighboring countries, but also South Korea's industries are getting a boost from the World Cup.
We're expecting a recovery in home appliance earnings in the fourth quarter. In fact, TV sales have soared by 95% compared to 2 weeks before the start of the World Cup.
South Korean conglomerates are also using the FIFA World Cup as an advertising platform to strengthen their brand awareness and boost sales, particularly the automobile giant Hyundai Motor sponsoring the football tournament. Yeonpyeong, Arirang News.
Regardless of having been inoculated with a second or third shot of the coronavirus vaccine, starting Thursday, anyone who has been inoculated for more than 3 months can get their next dose. That's according to the South Korean government's COVID-19 special response team, part of efforts to increase the country's vaccination rate amid projections that infections will sharply rise during the winter. Up until now, people were advised to get their next dose 4 months after the last shot or 4 months after contracting the virus. A group of workers at both South Korea's National Health Insurance Service and Seoul National University Hospital went on strike on Wednesday. Falling under the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, they're the first of a series of walkouts slated to begin over the next couple of weeks. Authorities are on alert as the truckers' union too is to begin their strike starting Thursday midnight. This comes even after the government and the ruling PPP had decided to extend the minimum pay guarantees for another 3 years earlier this week, which were due to expire in December. Truckers are asking for the pay guarantees to be permanent and for drivers from different industries to be covered as well. The unions of contract workers at schools and the public service sector are also planning to go on strike on Friday, and the unionized workers of Seoul Metro and Korea Railroad Corporation are to go on strike the following week. The number of babies born in South Korea and the total fertility rate, or the number of babies the average woman gives birth to in her lifetime, fell to another record low in Q3. According to Statistics Korea, roughly 64,000 babies were born between July and September, down 3.7% on year, the lowest figure for any third quarter since the numbers were first compiled back in 1981. The total fertility rate in the same period came to 0.79. In September, the country's population declined for the 35th consecutive month as the number of deaths outpaced births. Many young people have been delaying or giving up on starting families. According to them, the choice was made due to the worsening economy and the high cost of buying a home. Shifting our focus to a different story now, Design Korea 2022 exhibition is where local companies showcase their products with innovative designs that range from conglomerates like LG to startups. Also at the event, the government pledged more support to the industrial design sector. Itaewon takes us there.
The market today is filled with thousands of products and options, and for a product to outstand and shine, industrial design carries great significance. Futuristic designs are all in one place here at Design Korea 2022. Hosted by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, this 3-day event is being held to promote K-design. There are around 3,000 products with innovative designs on display. LG Electronics' highest resolution OLED TV, which can be customized to match a person's home interior, and Hyundai Motors' futuristic EVs hint at the direction of the latest design trends. Leading design companies and startups, too, are showcasing their innovative products, like the company behind this chair with an ergonomic design.
We consider ergonomic design to be important. This chair enables users to sit comfortably in a healthy posture by dividing one seat into 4 flexible parts.
For these startups, the event also aims to provide them with more business opportunities.
Innovative designs by large companies are in the global spotlight, but this isn't the case for small-sized companies. So we aim to focus on supporting the design development of these companies.
And for the industrial design sector to thrive even more, the government is pledging more support.
The government plans to focus on the digitalization of industrial design. This will boost productivity and lead to new business opportunities in sectors like AI and the metaverse. Also, more support for studies and consultations on sustainable design is on the way.
He added that the government plans to nurture experts that can combine design and technology while investing more for Korean designers to advance into the global market. Lee-Hyun, Arirang News.
Daytime conditions will continue to stay warm with temperatures above the seasonal average. For Seoul, highs will peak at 15 degrees Celsius tomorrow, which is about 5 degrees higher than the norms. Keep in mind that wide temperature gaps will follow for most inland regions, with a difference of at least 10 degrees between day and night. For Changsu, the morning will start off cold at 1 degree, but maximum temperatures will jump significantly to 16. Parts of the East Coast will see showers tonight. The amount of rain won't be too much, with about 5 to 20 millimeters. Also, finest concentrations will temporarily soar for western central regions tomorrow. That includes parts of Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheong-do provinces. Partly cloudy skies are expected for the morning hours. Seoul and Gyeongju will be kicking off at 5 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul will jump to 15 degrees. Daejeon 16. Gyeongju and Busan will be topping out at 18 degrees. On Friday, the Seoul metropolitan area will see light rain for the evening hours. For early next week, nationwide showers are in the forecast. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.